Hey guys, welcome back to the Ladder Up podcast. I'm Ron Creech, and we're happy to be here. And I'm here with my great friend David Staten. And so on this podcast, we're going to flip the script a little bit. He wants to do the interview, and so I'm going to be you're going to be the interviewer, and I'm going to be the interviewee, right?
Yeah. I'll be your boss for a change. How's that?
There you go. You were just telling me just before we got started, we've been knowing each other for 10 years now.
10 years doesn't seem like that long.
Time flies.
Yeah.
Seen a lot go on in 10 years, huh?
Absolutely. Life-changing stuff, man.
I guarantee you. So anyway, we're glad to be here. I'm glad you came back with us, and flip it over to Dave.
Well, I know how my life changed because I met Ron 10 years ago. And everybody needs a Ron Creech in their life, I can tell you that. And so I want you to get to know Ron like I've gotten to know Ron over the years. And man, we've told stories, we've studied together, we've laughed and cried and done it all over the last 10 years. And some of that I just want to kind of bring out so people get to know you. So in future podcasts, they know the guy that's talking, because everybody needs to know Ron. So I'll never forget 10 years ago, I found myself unemployed, and a friend of mine recommended I come see you, and I did, and you hired me as a sales rep. And I'd never really done anything in sales. And you told me, you said, well, I don't know how to train you, but you just hang with me and watch what I do and do what I do. And so I did. And I learned so much more than just to be a good salesman. I learned what I watched with Ron was a well-disciplined, thought-out, methodical, just very well-planned, organized guy who knew how to do this stuff, not just sales, but everything. And I learned so much about life and how to play this game of life from you. And that is invaluable. And that's what I hope people get out of this from you.
Wow. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a raise in your future.
I'll look forward to that. So I think the best thing we could do is I want people to kind of get to know you. So let's start from the beginning. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in a little small town in Louisiana called Oak Grove, Louisiana.
Yeah.
It's about in the middle of nowhere as you can get. It's in the northeast corner of Louisiana.
Big family?
Man, my dad had 14 brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And my mom had 9 brothers and sisters. And every one of those probably had 2 to 5 kids. So everywhere I went, I knew somebody.
Yeah.
And somebody knew me. Yeah, absolutely. It was amazing.
So what were you doing when you got to be an adult? What were you doing before you came here?
Well, right before I came here, I had a restaurant, and I was in the restaurant business, and it's kind of lost in my world. So I was like the jack of all trades. I could do a lot of things, but not really great at anything.
Yeah. And
so I've covered from A to Z, from mowing grass to painting houses to working for UPS to owning restaurants, and then came up here. And when I first came up here, I started a business called Cornwell Tools. I was one of the first ones to bring them back to the Nashville area. And then I became an auctioneer, which that was what my dream was to be. And then I was telling earlier on this different one that the Clive Anderson hired me as an auctioneer and told me that, if I didn't have enough money to make it for 6 months, I probably wasn't going to make it in the business. And I didn't have enough money to make it 6 days, much less 6 months. So then my uncle was getting ready to leave here, so I talked him into selling me this place, and here we are.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say you had some family here because your uncle owned Creech Ladders and Racks back in the day.
Yeah, when I got ready, going through some life changes, it's kind of like that song I sung about, Heads Carolina, Tails California.
Yeah.
And then so I came up here because me and my uncle, we were very close.
Yeah.
And so I came up here at the time and, hung out with him for a couple of years before I bought the place.
Tell me a little bit about when those days of Creech Ladder and Rack, when it was you and your uncle. It was because you've told me some really funny stories.
I don't know if I can tell it all on the air.
Well, he was
very eccentric.
He lived the Nashville lifestyle. Like he liked the nightlife, and he
lived it to the T. One of the best things we had is he bought. Never forget this. He bought a Dodge dually stretched limo truck. So we used to, we'd put our big cowboy hats on and our rhinestone suits, and we'd drive up to places and open the door, and we'd get out. People were like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
You know?
And so for people that don't know where Creech Ladders and Racks is, we're just on the south side of Nashville. And it's kind of a hopping place, you know, and especially back in the day.
Yeah.
And so you guys would, and you even had like a live stage, musicians and instruments and everything in the store, so musicians could come in and
when we first we had the building here on the corner, and there was a little table over there, and he had like a banjo and a guitar and a mandolin and stuff like that, and people would come in. I guess it's the same way today. You knew a lot of musicians trying to make it, they still had to have other jobs, and so they would come in and just sit down and play, and that's where I learned that talent was not really what made you in the industry, because there was people coming here back in the day that could sing better than anybody on the radio. They were amazing. And play the guitar. Oh, it was unbelievable, the talent that we had. Yeah.
That's great.
It was a lot of fun, man. People come in. Some guys come in and stay 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, my uncle, he was a guitar player too, so they'd sit down and just play. And I guess that's one of the reasons, now that you bring it up, that's one of the reasons I like this place so much.
Yeah.
It's just fun to work here. It was fun being here. Yeah.
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 So time went by, and you decided you were going to buy your uncle out and take over the business.
Yeah.
But you quickly learned that you didn't really buy a thriving business, right?
Man. No. I bought a small ship with a big hole in it. And all I had was a bucket to dip the water out with, man. Yeah, it was interesting. My uncle, he was a player, and he was a doer and shaker, and there was a lot of things that I didn't know about the business when I bought it. So anyway, it didn't take me long to figure all that stuff out.
Yeah. And I remember you telling me, like, there were pivotal moments, like once you took over and you realized, man, this business is in trouble.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? And you had no credit to buy inventory, which you have to have if you're going to be in business, especially the kind of inventory that you carry. You have to have credit, and you didn't have any. And I remember you telling me out of the blue, you got this letter from one of the banks, Bank of America.
Yeah. I was trying to get a credit card from the bank that we banked with, because I had no credit, and I was applying for a $2,000 credit card, and so they denied me. And then back in the day, like I said, when you got mail in, it had an actual credit card in it. All you had to do was call the number to activate it.
Yeah.
So this credit card came in, and I was about to tear it up and throw it away, and I looked at it, and it said $20,000.
Yeah.
I was like, what? So, of course, I called the 800 number on the front. The lady said, "Hey, Mr. Creech, you ready to go?" And I go, "So before we get off the phone, let me make sure that this is $20,000, right?
Count those zeros.
Yeah, let's count them again. Make sure there's yeah." She goes, "Yes, sir. You ready to go?"
Yeah.
I was like, "What?" I mean, I didn't have $200, $2,000, much less 20 grand, but
wow.
I still got it in my pocket today. I still use it every day. I do, man.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite stories was, you always told me that about an hour before you opened up every morning, you always watch television.
Mm-hmm.
And you came in one day and the TV did something crazy. You got to talk about that, because this is just amazing.
Well, we were in the little green building over here at the time, and probably came in with a headache, hangover. I don't know. It was smoking. I still smoked back then, and so I'm sitting in this little office, and so I'm flicking through the stations, and back then I don't know how many we had. It wasn't many, but the Christian broadcast station was on there. And I flipped on there, and there was this dude talking, man. And as soon as I clicked on there, he was almost like, he goes, "Ron, I'm talking to you." And I was like, "Whoa." And it was Creflo Dollar.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Whoa, that's some good," probably said a cuss word at the time. Went on about my business. And back then I watched a lot of Discovery Channel and the History Channel and all that stuff. And I had a remote. It was probably, 6 or 8 inches long. It was a big one. It's hard to talk about. Every time I would hit previous, it would go back to Creflo.
Yeah.
Every time. And I was freaking out. So anyway, I started trying to figure out what that meant. you know, and then, so then I started watching Creflo, and then,
Somebody was trying to get your attention.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. And 100% he was. And so the first introductory to changing my life back around was through Creflo Dollar. And I watched him every day. And then I got cases of his CDs and studies and stuff like that. And matter of fact, years later, if you worked here, he came on at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you worked here, you had to sit down and watch Creflo with me every morning.
Yeah.
I had notebooks of his stuff, man. That dude was amazing to me. And so going back to the faith and the things you're talking about, is that, and you might talk about this later, is nothing was really, I mean, there was business going on, but it wasn't nothing like it is now. It was just me and maybe somebody else.
Yeah.
And from 8 to 8:30, you watch Creflo Dollar, and if the phone rang, I wouldn't answer. I was testing what Creflo said. I was testing my faith. And I'd say, Lord, if that's a real business call, they'll call back after 8:30. And unbearably, most of the time when they would call back, they would go, hey, man, I called a while ago and nobody answered. And I would start to say, well, we're out back. And then he would go, well, I'm glad you didn't answer because we needed 2 ladders and now we need 2 more 8-foots to go along with it or something like that.
Yeah.
It was crazy, man.
That's great. That's great. I've loved that story because I know that was a pivotal moment where you were like, I got to start taking this stuff way more serious. And it really kind of set things in motion for you to start searching.
Yes.
You know, and then, you know, every successful person that I know, they have people, books, authors, you know, that they have just absorbed their content. Who are some of the people that are that to you, like books and things like that?
Yeah. Well, of course, Creflo Dollar was the leading factor of all this stuff. And then I'd say the next book that I probably sank a lot into was The Secret. I've probably read that book, I don't know, 50 times.
Yeah.
Probably wrote it out 12 times, word for word, to make it work. But probably one of the most powerful books that I ever read was The Power of the Subconscious Mind with Joseph Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
And then The Game of Life with, what's her name? Florence Chavan, I think that's how you say it. And then God Works Through Faith, those books.
Yeah. Neville Goddard, right?
Neville Goddard.
Yeah.
No, that was, it's not Neville. Robert somebody.
Russell.
Robert Russell. That's correct. Yeah. That's
good stuff.
Book. Yeah.
Good stuff.
And then, of course, the Think and Grow Rich. You know, that was probably one of my first books that really put me into second part of my life. I was telling them earlier that Awaken the Giant with Anthony Robbins was one of the first books that I ever read from cover to cover and put into action.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, I have a library full of them now, man.
And just to stop and think about this, it wasn't just your business that started changing when all this started happening.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it affected every area of your life.
Every area of my life. Every area of my life was affected, from the way I saw the world, the way I saw my wife, my kids, the way I run my business, the way I treated people, the way people treated me. You know, everything in my life changed from those books and Creflo and the studies of the adventure that I went on with that. And what I learned was, you know, that again, you and everybody else in here is God's highest form of creation.
Mm-hmm.
And he created this whole world for you. I mean, the birds sing for you. The sun comes up and sets for you. The birds buzz. I mean, everything is for you because that's what he created this earth for. And I didn't understand that. I had a great home life. I'm telling you, I had a great mom and dad. You know, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But just some things that I just didn't know, and they didn't know to teach me. You know, they just didn't know. It wasn't that they wasn't bad people. They just didn't know to teach me that.
Yeah.
But everything in my life changed, and you know, one of the, again, like the credit card and the remote control, and you know, I tell a story. My wife probably get mad at me, but I tell it in class all the time. Is I had already changed my life a little bit, and so I had a little dog, and his name was Lucky, and so I would walk him at night. Man, I'd walk that block and I'd just pray and pray. Lord, you need to change her. Lord, if you could just change her, everything would be great. It'd be fantastic. So that probably went on for I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks. And I lived on Briarwood Drive at the time, and I came up to the top of the hill there by the fire department. And it was just like I'm talking to you, man. I heard it clear in my spirit that the Lord said, how she treats you ain't none of your business. But you have to be the man and the husband that you are supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And she will, it'll change.
Wow.
But how she treats you ain't none of your business. And I was like, what? That's crazy. That's ridiculous. But then, as that happened, then Bob Phillips came into my life. Some other men came into my life that were mentors that taught me from what my dad taught me to the next level of how to be a businessman, how to be a church man, how to go to church, how to understand the word, right, how to do these things. And it's amazing how well she changed.
Isn't it that? It's funny.
Yeah.
What was it you said when somebody meets somebody they don't like, the saying is, there's something about that guy I don't like about myself.
Oh, yeah. That was one of my big things that I think it was Dr. Phil, and I was never a Dr. Phil fan, but that stuck to me, man. He goes, there's something about that old boy I don't like about myself.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. And it's not like there was this magic button that pushed and made everything easy, because, man, you were a one-man show for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
You were doing it all. I don't know how in the world, knowing the business now, I have no idea how you did that all those years by yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's physically, mentally, everything. It's tough.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. I've told the story before about when I was about 10 years old, somebody called me lazy. And then from then on, I was like, you will never outwork me. And so anyway, when I got here, it was 7 days a week most of the time, and it was 10 to 12 hours a day, sometimes 14 hours a day. And because I did it all. I did it all by myself. And, back then you had a cordless phone, so you hooked it on your pocket and you went to work, and we just did what you had to do. And I wasn't smart enough to know I could quit or I should quit. I just knew that I had to make it work. And, one of my things my uncle always said, the man who can hang in there the longest wins.
Yeah.
And so, every day at 8:30 when I was still here working, I was like, I'm going to hang in there. I'm going to make it work. Yeah, I'm going to make it work. I'll make it work. Then I remember after about maybe 8-9 years of that, my wife told me, she goes, you got to quit working on Saturdays. And I was like, woman, you crazy. We'll go broke. But true to the fact, she convinced me to not work on Saturdays, and it just got better from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I've asked you about who you listen to through the years, and you've recommended these guys to me, and I've listened to them, read their books, and still do. And you and I both have similar backgrounds church-wise, and raised very much the same. And so I knew the Bible, and I'm reading these things that you're sending me, and I'm connecting the dots like, oh man, isn't that the same thing Jesus said when he said this? Or isn't that the same thing that the word says when it says this? And so all these things are life. I call them laws of life. Like they're just life principles that apply whether you're a believer or not. They still apply.
Right.
It's like the law of gravity.
Like the laws of the universe. That's
exactly.
What they are,
yeah. And so knowing that, it's not only helped me, outside of church, but it's helped me really understand the word better. It's really opened it up to me to understand, oh, wow, this is actually how you apply this every day of your life. This is where your mind should be. This is what you should be thinking about. And man, I know when I've gone through some really tough times, illness and everything, and I know through the years, my background was Christian music, so I know hundreds of pastors and thousands of church people, and through the worst times, you were the only person that just didn't come in and say, "Hey, man, I'm praying for you." You actually asked me some tough questions, like, "What are you thinking about when you lay down at night? What are you thinking when you first wake up in the morning? What are you saying? What are you doing?" And you really helped guide me through some of the hardest things. And it's those life principles that it applies to everything, whether it's your health, whether it's your business or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, man, I will forever be grateful for that.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
One of the things is when you talk about I think we went through this too when we talk about it, about quoting scripture. There's a lot of people that can memorize scripture. And even when I teach, I get a lot of people say that, they start, Isaiah and James and this and that and other. And I go, well, what does that mean to you? I know you know the words, but what does those words actually activate inside you and your heart and your mind and your soul and your spirit to go and do something with it?
Yeah.
And I remember that was several of our conversations when we first had it. Well, we used to call it office talk.
Absolutely.
My office was right there, and you'd stand there at the doorway, and we would get carried away. And
we should have had these cameras rolling in, I can tell you.
That would have been great.
We had a big jump start on this.
Yes.
But man, I'm just super excited to be here with you and do this in any way that, like any way you can use me on this. This is such an honor to be here with you.
Well, I appreciate you saying all the kind words. And like I said, I can hear them and I can accept them, but I don't ever think of myself as that until somebody like you comes along and says that. And, this is what I'm doing this for. It's for the sole purpose of helping somebody through like what we went through.
Yeah.
There was, there's nothing any more devastating than losing a child. The next probably most devastating thing is your health, and then losing your business or whatever's next in line. But, people go through stuff every day.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that I could ever say and do to help them, because, the Lord's blessed me, man. I've got great friends in my life. I've seen both sides of the fence, and I sure like it on this side a whole lot better.
Yeah.
And, my story. I mean, I've been through a lot of different things in my life, and I just want to help people. And that's what I think people want, somebody to I just want to be a voice of reason, if that's possible.
Yeah.
I don't really want to tell anybody what to do. I'd explain to them, just like I did you, how the laws of the universe work, how the laws that God created are in that book. Mm-hmm. Myron Golden, he's an excellent example of that.
Yeah.
He says, hey, there's certain things in this book that we can talk about, and certain things, if you do them, this happens.
Yeah.
And I think people don't understand that.
Yeah. So here we are, 2025. Creech Ladders and Racks is super successful. You got other businesses. You got your hand in a lot of things, doing a lot of things. But even here at Creech Ladder, you do what you have always done, but you're doing it in a bigger way. A lot of the guys you hire are through the Men of Valor program. Talk about a little bit about that.
Man, that's an amazing organization. Basically what this is men that have been incarcerated, that's getting out of prison or jail, and they go through this, the Men of Valor, which is a Christian-based organization, and they can get out and get a job.
Yeah.
And I love it. I mean, those guys that work here with us is outstanding.
It's amazing to watch them. I mean, every day turn their life around just by knowing what the next right thing is to do, and they do it.
Yeah.
And I see them every day doing it, and it's a great opportunity.
The way I heard about that is we were in a meeting, and a lady named Kelly just mentioned it in a conversation. Not to me, just in a conversation, and it stuck in my head. I don't know why. So when I got to work that next day or the next week, whenever it was, I told Jamie, which is, my daughter-in-law that pretty much runs everything now. I said, we got to check this Men of Valor thing out. And she goes, why? I go, I don't know. It's just something about it stuck in my head. So anyway, we did talk to Mike and Miles and Tevin and all those people and got it set up. And it's the most incredible thing that I've ever done, I've ever been involved with. And one of my friends that used to work at Deer Run Camp, man, when COVID came along, it hit him really, really hard. And for months and months and months, we prayed for him. He was right on the edge of, And so then he walks in the door like 6 months ago and go, hey, man, I'm fundraiser and helper and a mentor out at Men of Valor. And he goes, hey, you need to get involved with that. And I was proud to turn around and go, man, I'm already in there.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, I love those guys, man. They're great.
So one more thing that I want to really kind of talk about. Several years back, you had a friend, I think in Atlanta, that had some major back issues, right?
Yeah.
And I remember you telling me that he had called you and wanted you to come and pray for him.
Yeah.
To Atlanta. And so you and some pretty high profile people in the Christian world, there's how many of them, 4 or 5?
There's about 6 or 8 there.
6 or 8.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. So what I love about this was everybody was saying the church stuff, the church lingo. And then you came in and started asking some really hard questions.
Yeah.
That really kind of jarred him. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, man, I was teaching a class called The Circle Maker.
Yeah.
And it's out there. You can get the book. You can read it. And so there's a gentleman goes to our church, and he's always teaching also, but he wasn't that semester. So he said, hey, I'm going to come to your class. And I go, okay. So he came into class, and then as we got into a couple weeks of that, he goes, I got a friend of mine that we've been praying for 16 years. And he goes, he needs to hear this. I go, well, then share it with him. He goes, no, you need it. I go, no, you need to share it with him first. So we went through this almost the exact same steps that me and you went through. Yeah. What are you thinking? What are you doing? What do you want to do? The whole 9 yards that we do. And so then he came up to me after, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 weeks into the program. And he goes, I want you to come to Atlanta and pray with this guy. He goes, we've been praying for him for 16 years. And to the best of my knowledge, I know it's what happened. He said that they had to take the screws out of his back because his bones were so soft that it just wasn't working and this and that and other. And I go, I was like, no, I'm not going, man. No, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really telling him that, but I was in my head. I was like, so ask him this question. Let's. And he wrote everything. The guy was amazing. He wrote everything out that we asked him to do. So then Dave Taylor asked me, he goes, hey, man, I want you to come meet my friend. I go, well, there's another guy, Stephen Goss, that dude is a prayer warrior, man. He's amazing. So I said, well, I'll go if Stephen will go. I was trying to dodge the bullet. So then Stephen goes, yeah, I'll go. And I was like, oh, man. So then Stephen got another guy to go with us, and Dan Zimmerly. And so we all 4 loaded up and went to Atlanta. And they was like, we're going to go down and pray for this guy, and everything's going to be great. And I was like, all right, let's go. So on the way down there, I was just thought we was going to go to somebody's house and just pray over this dude and, have a snack and leave.
Mm-hmm.
So when we drove up, there was, I don't know, 4 or 5 cars in the driveway and all this stuff. And I was like, what in the world's going on, man? So we walk in, they had hors d'oeuvres set up, and they had, all the waters and all that stuff. And there was a gentleman there. He had written several books, and he had a job, if that's what you want to call it, of praying in Congress.
Mm.
And then there was 2 other people that were from, what's the big church in Atlanta? Stanley, Andy Stanley's church?
Yeah, Charles Stanley was
Charles,
his dad, yeah.
And they were like the choir director or something like that, some people there. And I was like, holy smokes, what's going on? Then there was another guy that was just happened to live in the area because he had been praying for this guy. He goes, I never met him. I just wanted to come by. And then there was a pastor from South Carolina, I believe it was. And I'm confused. I was like, Lord, I don't know. I mean, why you got me here? Yeah. I'm just some, classroom teacher. I don't know what the heck's going on here. So anyway, as we were all sitting there talking, it just came over me, and just like the Holy Spirit goes, all right, let's get started. So we started, and we started praying. We started doing the same thing, and with the questions and what you want, where you at, and this and that and other. And then his name was Keith, and he got all antsy, and he couldn't sit still. And he finally goes, I got to stop. And he goes, I'm hurting too bad. He goes, I got to go to the restroom. So he got up, and there was a restroom right there, but he went upstairs. And then when he came down those stairs, he'd probably get emails, but I'm telling you, that dude was different.
Mm.
And from that day forward, he never had back problems again. He went back to work. His back was healed immediately.
I remember one of the things you told me you asked him. You said, if God healed you right now, what would you do?
Yeah.
And so he starts going down this list. I would do this, and I would do this. And I'll never forget you told him, everything on your list you could do sitting here in your hospital bed.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could do all that. Why aren't you doing it now? And I think that from what you said, his reaction, it was like a light bulb moment of like, you know what? There's no reason if I'm going to make this deal with God that if he heals me, I'm going to get the jump start on it and just go ahead and do what I'm committed, what I'm saying I'm going to do.
Right.
And that was a big deal.
Yeah. He would email me back or email me through David and go, David Taylor, and he'd go, nobody's ever asked me that question before. I don't know how to answer it.
Yeah.
And then he would actually sit down and pray about it and do it and answer it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, I mean, I could go a whole lot more deeper into it now, but it was amazing. It's probably the first time I've ever seen somebody miraculously healed right in front of my eyes.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. It was amazing, man. And he, as far as I know, he's doing great now. He's living in Florida. Everything's good. You know, he retired.
That's great.
He did a thing at our church about it. Talked about how God healed his body.
That's amazing.
Incredible, man.
Yeah. So here we are. You've just written a book called The Giver.
Yes.
And I read it. And when I first read it, it kind of threw me. But then when you explained to me the approach, it made complete sense.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I'll tell you the name of it. It's called The Giver. And it kind of breaks it down to 3 different scenarios. You got the village or the people, and then you have the giver, and then you have the mayor. And it's just a parable of how God works in all the stuff. I don't want to talk about too much right now, but yeah, it's amazing. Should be out in a month.
That's great.
Should be out in a month that we can really talk about it then. And the thing about what Dave's talking about is everything we talk about is always an action item. There's always something to do. Like he said, the questions, the thinking, the revolving. And I said, but this, when we wrote this, it's just a parable.
Yeah.
So you didn't really understand what it was going on, did you?
Not when I first read it. Not when I first read it. But then when you explained the approach to it, then I was like, oh, I completely understand this now. Yeah. It's kind of like, it reminded me of when Jesus gave the parable of the sower.
Yeah.
He was like, listen, if you can understand this, you'll understand all the rest of these parables. And so when you read it as that, then you kind of find yourself somewhere in the story. And I love it.
Yeah. Well, the publisher spent a lot of time with me because, in one of his stories that he kept saying, he goes, the truth's in the story.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I think it was the disciples asking Jesus, just tell me what to do.
Right.
But he didn't. He told them a parable. He told them a story. So,
yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'll try to do it. And that's what we did. It's just amazing.
Let's wrap up here with this. Okay. Why do you think, like these laws of life, these lessons of life, laws of the universe, why do you think that most people go through life and never tap into it, never understand? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the real reason is most people don't know anything about them. But I think the second reason is if you start using them and you start applying them to your life, then people will talk about you.
Yeah.
They will talk about how you twisted the word, your heresy, or then if you teach it in church, then people will say you're prideful and you kind of dancing around the subject. But yeah, I think most people don't know it because they don't know they don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And I don't think pastors want to teach it because if you were healed for cancer, but this other person wasn't, so they don't have an answer between the reason one got healed and one doesn't.
Right.
So if they teach on the laws and then I understand the law and use it to the best of my ability and it does something for me, but the other person says, well, I did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Then they can't explain the difference.
It always amazed me every time Jesus performed a miracle. It was the perfect chance for him to say, look, man, I'm the Son of God. Check out what I just did. Right?
Yeah.
Never did it. He always looked at the person and said, what you believed did this for you.
Yeah.
Your faith did this for you. And in other words, you tapped in to the laws that I've put in motion from the beginning of time, and you understand it now.
That's right. Some of the most shocking things to me is when they talk about the miracles, the healings that Jesus did when he walked up to the blind man and he asked him a question. What did he ask him? What do you want me to do for you?
Yeah. I
mean, everybody knows that Jesus should have known what he wanted.
Right.
But he wanted to know how connected he was to that.
Yeah.
Wonder if he would have just been, man, I'm hungry. I've been sitting out here all day.
Exactly.
But to go with the story, he goes, hey, I want to be healed. And then the same thing, like the friends. I mean, he healed a dude because his friends had enough faith to bring him there.
Yeah.
So it's about your faith, and your. When I say that, it's hard to explain, but it's not, because you can't really explain it to somebody. It's kind of like the book. It's like the sunshine. It's like the feeling that you get. It's like shaking the hands with a starlight.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. It's unexplainable what you get, but once you connect to it,
yeah,
it's like you're connected to the universe. All the energy is there.
Yeah.
And you can relate to it, and your body was created the same way, so it connects to it and it relates to it.
Yeah.
And once you do, then that's when the miracles start happening.
Exactly. And learning that it's such a controversial thing in church anyway.
Yeah.
And I've yet to really figure out how to explain it and connect the word to this. But a lot of the feedback that I'll get is, man, that's crazy belief. I mean, you're really going overboard with the faith thing. I'm like, in all the times that Jesus addressed faith, it was always the reason why this thing is not happening is because of your little faith. And so tapping people into a larger faith or a deeper belief is challenging, because they're like I was. They'd heard the same thing all their life sitting in church.
Mm-hmm.
And when you try to take them deeper into it, man, they resist.
Sure. Yeah, I look at it like this. There's a saying, actually, it's in that book, I think, Power of the Subconscious Mind. People are like water. They seek their own level. Mm. And I think a lot of people, once they become saved, they got the golden ticket to heaven, so they just kind of stay at that level.
Yeah.
And you can go anywhere you want to with it. I mean, you can go as deep as you want to or as shallow as you want to, I guess. And so when you start going through some of the things that we talk about, matter of fact, when I would tell people about this man being healed right in front of my eyes, 99.999% of the time they'd go, huh, and turn around and walk off.
Wow.
Not one person stopped me and go, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, that's, because it's so out of the realm. And, I've had people say a lot of different things about it, but I mean, I was there. There was 8 other people there that saw it too.
But I've learned that when the bottom drops out of life and you got nothing else to hold on to,
that's right.
You better be prepared to go deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's all you got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's all you should ever have to start with.
Right.
I've been on mission trips before with, and we were in we were in Honduras, and come out of this church. We'd been in there probably 4 hours. I mean, you never know. When you go to a church in those places like that, clock means absolutely nothing. Right. They might tell you you're going to start at 4 and it might start at 5:30, and they might tell you you're going to be in there till 6 and it'll be out at 9:30.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got out of this church on a Sunday afternoon, and all the young kids were running around, and a little kid ran between 2 cars and got ran over. A car hit him. Boom.
Mm.
Nobody called 911. All they did was scooped him up, took him back into church, cleared out a table, and laid him on the table and started praying. And speaking in tongues, that's who the church was, and they started doing all the things. And then I don't know how the kid got up, but he got up.
Wow.
So, but that's where we should go first.
Right.
We should go to prayer first, and we should go with God. I guess my new saying that I do now is when something happens, I just ask myself, I go, Lord, what do you want me to know about this?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing I ask myself is, what do you want me to do about it?
Yeah.
Because when my wife got diagnosed with breast cancer, I mean, you talking about a gut punch, man. You know what it feels like.
Oh, yeah.
And then after all the tears and crying and moaning and wondering why, within, I don't know, it wasn't very long. I just go, what are we going to do with this?
Yeah.
And she goes, we're going to help people. And I don't know, for probably 4 or 5 years after that, people would call her from all over the country because she knew people all over the country. She was a court reporter and traveled all over. And they'd go, hey, I need you to talk to my friend, man. My friend Sally's got breast cancer. Yeah. And so they'd call Lori, and she'd just tell them what she knew and help so many people with that. It was amazing. Oh, yeah. But, so much has changed because she was diagnosed in 2015. So much has changed now that she don't really, she don't have the answers anymore. But, she's been cancer-free since then.
That's awesome. That's
amazing, man. God's good.
It's funny when you, what I've learned is that when you say, God, I want you to use me, most people think God's going to use my time, my talent, and my treasure. Mm-hmm. And really what they're doing is saying, give me a testimony that I can proclaim that will teach other people.
Yeah.
And if people knew what that testimony may end up being, they may never have prayed that in the first place. But it's always in that pain, in that stuff, that tough stuff of life that God will use to draw people to you so you can share with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm a firm believer in prayer. I've seen it happen 1,000 times. So I tell people all the time, you better be careful what you ask for.
Exactly.
You just might get it.
Exactly.
And so right now I'm teaching a book. I think it's called The 10 Qualities to Move from a Believer to a Disciple. And the first question I asked people in the class when we first started is, what do you think a disciple is? And everybody was like, oh, I got to move to Africa or some foreign country and do this and that and other. And I was like, no, it's not exactly what it is. So we started a course, and and most people want to be used. They just don't know how.
Right.
And then they get afraid of what it might be because the enemy just speaks to them and goes, I'm going to send you to Africa and you're going to have to live in the jungle and whatever they talk about,
Exactly.
But God just said, hey, you need to go tell your story.
Yeah.
And I gave you a unique story. And, a lot of people, I try to get a lot of people to teach, and they're like, I don't know anything about the Bible. Okay, start teaching.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna teach, you're gonna learn.
Yeah.
You're gonna learn. And my simpleness, as I tell people, is he just wants you to know enough about this to tell somebody else your story.
Right.
That's all he wants.
Exactly.
And if you'll go and do that, then you will change the world.
Yeah.
I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Change the world.
I've learned that to be a disciple is to be a lifelong learner. Like you're a forever student.
Yeah.
And man, that's why we need people like you. In everybody needs a Ron Creech in their life.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, man. It's really been an interesting journey, actually, for where I came from, and not that I came from anywhere it's horrible, but, I can guarantee you people that knew me back then would never imagine I ever taught in church or ever did this or ever did that. So, but this is crazy. I don't even know why I'm saying this, but when in the last several years when, it seemed like the world was going to hell in a handbag, I just kept saying, Lord, I need to do something.
Yeah.
I don't know what I can do, but if I can change 5 people's life, then everything we're doing right here is worth it. I just want, try to help people to be the best that they can be in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can do that, that'd be great, man. I don't want anything past that. I do. I want a lot of things. Don't get me wrong. I want this thing to be successful, and
Sure.
I want people to love it. And I've met these great people right here that's behind these cameras that I don't know, 6 months ago, I didn't even know.
Great team.
I got a great team. And God sent them here. I'm telling you that. This young man sitting right here behind this camera right there, he is a answered prayer. I can guarantee you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if we can keep it going, that's what we're going to do, man.
Yeah. Well, I know through Ladder Up podcast and through The Giver and everything else that you're involved in, I've watched the success happen, and I have no doubt it's going to be successful.
Well, thank you, man. I've been blessed. The Lord's been good to me. He's a lot of wisdom. A lot of people came into my life that I had no idea who they were. But I'm a firm believer. When you pray, if you have a committed decision, if you're 100% in, the Lord will rearrange the universe to bring you the people that you need, and whatever you got to have, it'll come about. Just need to be aware of where it's at.
Right.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. Be watching for it.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to appreciate you. I thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, ladder up.